Alright, so I'm gonna make a quick little video tutorial on how to set up hostages, and as soon as you release the hostage there and you bring the hostage to a certain area, the mission ends. So firstly you will set up your area where you want to hold your hostage, then you will want to place your hostage, and because I am using 3D enhanced, I just click on the make hostage checkbox, and I also make sure that enable captive mode is checked so the AI won't shoot this poor guy while his hands are bound behind his back. Then what you want to do is you're gonna place a trigger. F3, place just a normal trigger, and inside of the trigger, in the conditions, you will say semicolon. Sorry about that. Exclamation mark, open brackets, pilot getVariable, open exclamation marks, ENH underscore is hostage. Close your exclamation marks, close your brackets, semicolon. This will say that if the pilot is not a hostage, because when you check that make hostage button, it sets this variable to true and the exclamation mark says not. So if it is not true, then the condition will be satisfied. Then the OnActivation will run. Pilot setCaptive false, that setCaptive checkbox that you checked sets this to true. So if you set it back to false, the enemies will be able to shoot the pilot and be able to kill him. And the pilot, I think, the pilot will be able to shoot back by default. Anyway, then pilot join group player. This will make it so the pilot joins your group. Very important if you want the pilot to run along with you. Otherwise, if you want the pilot to just get into some vehicle and run away, then this is not needed. Right, then that is basically that. Then the last thing, the area where you want to get the pilot to for the mission to end. It's also a trigger. You'll place the trigger. You can modify the height and width of the trigger by resizing A and B. C is your Z axis, so that'll be the height. So if I set this to 50, it will only go up to there, whereas my -1 gives it no boundaries and it will go on indefinitely. Inside of the conditions area, your pilot has a variable. I forgot about that. I'll show you how to do that just now. So pilot inArea thisTrigger. This trigger is that trigger. This trigger does not have a variable name, so this is why I said thisTrigger. inArea, when someone is within the blue bounds, within this blue rectangle, and pilot is this poor man over here. When you place your guy that you want to make a hostage, be sure to go place a variable, make it a variable name. You can name it anything you want, as long as you remember this name for future reference. And future reference will be in the join the hostage trigger, where pilot is called numerous times, because pilot has a variable that's called ENH hostage due to that checkbox, and also this captive, and then pilot is the object that you want to join to your group. And then you can go along and add some fluff, add a few soldiers like this, add a few waypoints, and then all is well, and your mission should work as is. To make your mission run a little bit smoother, be sure to disable the simulation on all the objects that you don't want to destroy, or that's not necessary to destroy. It just gives you a few extra frames, especially in very busy scenes. Alright, that is all. I forgot to mention that inside the triggers you get the activation type, the type and activation. The type is not always necessary, but in this case it's end, for when you want to complete the scenario successfully, and activation is by what type of person will activate this trigger. But that is not necessary, you can leave it at none because we have a condition for activation. The same thing goes for this trigger. This trigger doesn't have a type or an activation because the trigger is purely just there to do logic checks.